Welcome to the Built Different podcast. Let's get it. Welcome everybody to the Built Different podcast. We are here. We are finally here. Oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be amazing. Thank you. I was waiting for the claps here to come, But welcome to the Built Different podcast, everybody. It is a delight that I get to share my words with you guys, with the guests that I'll have with me, with the team that I have around me. This is going to be a good one. We have a lot in store for you guys, a lot of good stuff, great stuff. But this right here, this is what we're going to call a different conversation. Why is it called a different conversation? Because the other portions of the podcast are going to include sports, being high off life, totally life, interviews. But this right here, it's going to be a different conversation. You might see some similarities to the Built Different interview portion of this, but this is a different conversation. And I'm going to sound like a broken record. Why is it a different conversation? Because if you know me, I love discussing topics in their complete entirety, how I feel about them, how it pertains to humanity. And the topic that I have today is going to be 2020. And I figured, why not start the whole podcast with a talk about the craziest year that we may have faced together as humanity. And by together, I mean everyone was going through it. It wasn't affecting just a portion of people. It wasn't pertaining to specific countries. This was a whole world thing, but specifically humans here in America, humans in general, etc. But we're gonna talk about that in a second. I just really want to soak in the fact that this is the first episode of the Built Different podcast. I know I'm doing a lot with my hands, but that's because I'm really hyper. And I really love what I'm going to be able to bring to you guys. And the time is now. And the time, if anybody out there who is possibly listening when this is released, whatever crazy idea you have in mind, just do it. This podcast, for example, this was an idea I've had for years, was to talk openly, talk on a TV show, talk, on a radio, just talk, get my ideas and get my thoughts out there, make it fun, put it in a format, everything. And we're here. And whether this is a win or lose, we're going to keep going until it is a win. And if it's never a win, it's never a win. But I strongly feel with the team that I have, the minds that we have, the minds that I have, the persistency, the drive, the hunger, the will, we're going to deliver you guys some amazing content. And as I said before, there's a reason that this is called the Built Different podcast. It's going to be called the Built Different podcast because we're built different. This whole podcast is going to be built different. Like I said, my thing is I want to be different from other people. And obviously there's sports podcasts, there's podcasts where people get high, there's podcasts where people just talk. However, I'm gonna give different opinions and different views, but most importantly, I'm not gonna steal from other people. I'm not gonna be, I'm sure you guys see a lot of content creators out there, and this can be its own episode, but there's a lot of content creators out there that think they're setting the bar, that they're setting the wave, when realistically they're just doing what other people are already doing, and they're mimicking it. And in a lot of cases, yeah, you can get rich off that, but are you gonna reach your true potential just copying someone else? What are we really doing here? But here we are, a different conversation, and the conversation today is 2020. Let's kick everything off with the craziest year and everything that went down in 2020, but also stick with it. Hear me out, because at the end of this recap of 2020, I have some interesting thoughts. And with this recap of 2020, you guys are going to see exactly how much actually happened, because it blew my mind while I was doing research for this. Let's first start off with how the year started. The year started off with Life is Good. I know you guys know that song by Drake and Future. Why did I say Future? Drake and Future. Future being in my top 3 artists ever. Don't question me about that. That's my guy. That's my dog. Watch how you talk about Future. Being that it was Drake, being that it was Future, there was other hits out. But it's funny to me how the year started off with this hit. It started off with a hit titled Life is Good. And before COVID, life was life. It was literally, it was better. It was better. It was free. We just didn't know how free exactly it was. And everything got crazy. So from there, some of the stuff was in order, and then a lot of it was just me remembering stuff on the fly. And let's start off with Harvey Weinstein. So Harvey Weinstein happened, rocked Hollywood. It was shitty. It was ugly. It exposed a lot about Hollywood. But if that wasn't the start to the exposure of Hollywood, Jeffrey Epstein happened, right? And with that, it was another thing that made Hollywood really shitty. But all of a sudden, we forget about these two things. Keep that in mind. We forget about these two things because of everything else that was thrown in everyone's faces as it, pertains to that. And before we dig, too much further, I do want to touch on one of those things. Also remember, and this might be forgotten, that on Wayfair, they decided to, I don't know who decided, but on Wayfair, a couple of people noticed, and I was also one of the people that noticed this after they had put it on Facebook. I immediately went to go see it, and it was true. They had these lockers out there, lockers and pillows, and definitely just lockers and pillows, and it had the names of missing children on them, and they were being sold for $13,000. And the owner or CEO, whatever the guy's name was, title that he gave himself, he stepped down from it. No one heard about it since. It didn't make national news, but that happened, and it was just tossed under, just like the entirety of the Jeffrey Epstein thing was just thrown under, made it, whatever. Let's continue on. 2020. Australia was on fire. That happened. That was disgusting to see in Australia. Kanye happened. Kanye West happened in 2020. More Kanye. And the biggest thing that obviously happened in 2020, and I know I keep prolonging it, but COVID happened in 2020. That's when everything started. And here we are 3 years later. But COVID started in 2020. And think about everything that came with COVID. Let's think about, our families, maybe people that we know got sick, maybe our family members in general getting hurt, and we couldn't see them because of the COVID restrictions. A lot of good, entertainment that we missed out on. Everything outside of our houses got crazy when people were outside. Companies and their stocks went upside down. The internet became our home, and I'm gonna touch on that later. But the internet became our home, and that's a huge thing that came from 2020 was the development and advancement of the internet without us really kind of even realizing it. It just became normal life. But as we went on, 2020, Kobe passed away. Rest in peace, Cobes. Chadwick Boseman passed away. Alex Trebek passed away, host of Jeopardy. And if you didn't know, Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther. All of them were super sad, super deep deaths, celebrity deaths. They were all unfortunate. The first two being surprising, and the Alex Trebek one being publicized. Like, we knew it was happening. He announced it on Jeopardy. They were all very sad. Rest in peace to all of them. Rest in peace to three real legends. Chadwick Boseman and Kobe, obviously way too soon. Way too soon. Kobe had a lot of money to make. Same with Boseman. He had some more awesome movies to make. He was, actually a very incredible actor. If you saw more than just Black Panther, I definitely recommend you do. Kanye also happened again. He decided he was going to run for president. Sports got shut down. That was a real tough one. Sports getting shut down. Kim Jong-un died, and then he didn't die. Probably sparked some memories with that one. Police brutality went very, very overboard. We're still in 2020, by the way. All this happened in a calendar year. Police brutality went overboard, and then it happened again and again, as it always does, because it's always going on. And that is another issue that I have with the common general media, is that police brutality is happening almost every day. It's just we get these highlighted news stories every now and then. And again, those news stories are very sad. Rest in peace to all the, beautiful human beings that have died or that were involved in that. But this was just an addition to 2020. And police brutality it's almost like they were toying with the media in a way. And Donald Trump, let's not forget, Donald Trump happened all year long. He was still the president until Joe Biden was president. A complete 180 from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. Donald Trump impeachment by the end of the year. The COVID vaccine. Just 2020 was crazy. There's probably a lot that I am forgetting because it was crazy and all of that stuff happened. And let's not forget about what it did to us. Forgot one thing. There was murder hornets. Don't forget about the murder hornets. By the way, the other day, speaking of hornets, there was 3 really aggressive bees. Pretty sure they were either hornets or wasps, but pretty sure wasps, because hornets is a little aggressive. But 3 of them came in my house. They did not raise hell. They didn't do anything crazy. They just went and kind of got on one of the light fixtures, and I'm pretty sure they were having sex, but to be mature, they were hanging out on the light. They did not move. Well, they didn't move too much, but they were moving. They were alive the whole time. And yeah, it was very crazy. I let them rock out. Don't know where they went. But they were rocking there for a whole 2 days. maybe they're gonna surprise me at some point. But anyway, way off topic, not traffic. 2020, as you guys witnessed it and lived through it like I did, was a crazy year and the start of just a roller coaster going the wrong way. Sadly, as sad as it's been, it's gone the wrong way. And we have to stop denying that these events, no matter who you are, what side you took on some of those situations that I said, like the COVID vaccine or police brutality, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, no matter what, all that stuff took a massive toll on the human race in general. And this is something that I talk about a lot, but the human race, us personally, we can also get away from the human race as a total, and we can also come to ourselves personally. Us humans, we can only handle so much. And with all that did go down, and the fact that it happened to all of us, and how it divided so many people still, and caused a lot of arguments, a shit ton of arguments, so many arguments that year. Again, everything that I said, like whether you thought COVID was real or you thought COVID was fake, racist against non-racist, people that thought the Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein stuff was just a coincidence, or it was Hollywood. Kanye West, the vaccine, whether to take it, whether to not. But just think about all the stuff that you went through in 2020 real fast, like you personally. All of you guys listening, maybe it was just the grand old year for you because you benefited off of COVID, like many of us did on stocks. But also think about the mental stuff and what it turned everyone into mentally, and how much plans were ruined, really good things were ruined, even dwindling it down to maybe like the smallest detail of a movie that was postponed. 2020 took a toll on us. We gotta understand that. And not a lot of people, and why I want to talk about this topic is because not a lot of people have really dug deep into the surface of it. 2020 was a real crazy year. And again, I'm probably forgetting a lot that happened because so much did happen. But when you factor in all of that happened in the world, like on a world status, a world frame, and then you throw your own things that happen to you personally, that happen on a day-to-day basis, and the things that also in your daily routine or whatever routines that you had also really messed up some of your daily routines. Just think about your daily routines and everything that got messed up because you couldn't do certain things anymore. And you had to figure it out, change your whole life, change your whole way of thinking. And then we got to believing that was the norm. Which is why we see that it is so freaking weird outside these days, isn't it? But we're gonna circle back to that thought in a second and come back to a thought that I had earlier in the podcast when I said the internet became home for us. Now, I want to kind of dig into that a little bit because we've seen a lot of developments in the internet. One of the big ones, OnlyFans. And I'm not going to give an opinion on OnlyFans because I'm not here to start arguments. All you fine ladies that are out there on OnlyFans and males, whoever is out there on OnlyFans, keep doing your thing. Bring them whatever you're happy with. But OnlyFans is one of the biggest direct results from COVID and Instagram as well. Instagram blowing up to what it has blown up into now, and it doesn't seem like it's changed a lot. But when you think about what it has done for people, what it has done for content creators, what it has done for models, what it has done for basically anyone that used Instagram while being inside, / TikTok while being inside, what that has brought. And then you think about the developments in video games and how, the metaverse really took off. And again, I don't mean to mix the two because, two separate thoughts. My apologies on that. Streaming, all the different streaming apps that came out because more people were watching TV, and how it basically changed again the way we watch TV, because now when you turn on your TV, there's probably, anywhere between 15 to 30 streaming apps now, probably way more. A lot of content that you now have access to thanks to 2020. And also, think about like DoorDash and, no, not Ubering and Lyfting, that's great, that was always a thing, but things like DoorDash, things where you can like order stuff right from your phone, boom, 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 don't gotta go anywhere, don't gotta, worry about any restrictions, all of that stuff. The internet became crucial for almost everyone. Now, if you went through this whole COVID stage and you did it without the internet and you just relaxed and sat there and read the newspaper and yawned and whatever it is that you folks did during 2020 while everything was going on, some of you still had TV, some of you still had radio, whatever. Those aren't the internet. But we relied heavily on the internet, and it got to a point where we still do. I mean, I'm still guilty of it. I still do Instacarts. I still do DoorDash. I still, I myself personally got to a point where if I absolutely don't have to go outside, I'm not going to go outside. And I'm pretty sure that, that's the case for a lot of you guys listening as well. And just think about all the developments from 2020 and how that affects current day life in 2022. And just a lot of things that we enjoyed became different. I remember when during 2020 I was a life insurance agent, and it went from, meeting with people in person and really showing them why life insurance is something they should get, which, by the way, if you're sitting here listening to this, please get life insurance. I mean, I know I'm about to just do a basic advertisement for life insurance and there's no companies getting credit for it whatsoever. But life insurance, but please get it. Stop being dumb. Take care of your family. You never know what's going to happen to you. But life insurance. Yeah, and then it went from being in person, talking to these people, to on a Zoom call, on like something like this, like you guys are seeing me now. And it was so weird, but like when so many things become you being in your house is where, you live, and your house is turning into everything you need it to be. It's constantly being refreshed with food because you're using Instacart, and it's anything that you need is literally at your fingertips. Yeah, that's what it's gonna turn into. And it was unfamiliar territory outside that big old world out there. It was very unfamiliar out of nowhere. No one knew what to expect when they walked out their door. No one knew if there was going to be a protest. No one knew, and I'm talking about protest on many different things. And I don't mean just like your regular protest, but there was, and mind you, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump was very damaging to a lot of people. Protest on that, police brutality, COVID. The stores were crazy. Nothing was really stocked. No one wanted to touch anything after anybody. Everyone was real aggressive. Humanity changed. And let's dial it back to the simple basics of mental health. Anxiety and other mental health issues went way through the roof in 2020 and beyond. And let's think about why. When so much things happened during the year, and I think 2020 was a year, the craziest year for humans, and why I said in the beginning that it really affected everybody in some way, shape, or form. Of all those things I listed, there was at least probably one thing there that you were emotionally or mentally into. And if it wasn't one of those things, it was maybe you not being able to go out as much. Or it was you not getting outside like you used to. And that's not, getting out as in partying or going to the bar or anything. I mean just the simple walks, or simple going outside and enjoying the air. Simple things like that. Stuff like that was different. it was very, very, very different. And mental health suffered. Mental health really, really suffered. And everything that multiplied. I'm pretty sure, obviously depression has always been a thing. Anxiety has always been a thing. And everything else that you can think of that's mentally health related has always been a thing. But it really magnified in 2020. Everything really did. And I've noticed a lot of people that I know, including myself, now more frustrated, now more quicker to be angry. Mental overloads are more prominent. People are just a lot more tense now than they were before. And it makes sense. And I think once we realize the person that we turned into because of all these happenings in the past couple of years, the better we can take that and help ourselves. Because with everything that happened and all the things that it affected in your life and all the things that it changed, all the random pressure it put on you, some things it may have caused to be a catastrophe, that all weighs and eats at the brain. And let's also not forget that so much stuff happening at one time for a long period of time, like it has and it did, it can change a person. And I'm one person from experience where I can't really specifically point to one thing in 2020, but I do know that was mental drainage, and it hasn't stopped since. Just nothing but mental drainage. And we're all drained. We're all very, I notice we're all very quicker to get frustrated. A lot more major events are occurring in our lives. It's really hard to get off what I'm exactly trying to say, but I know I can pinpoint it from then that humanity changed forever. And it is in more than just one way. It was our everyday life, our mental health, it's just the world got so much shittier. It got harder. Think about how much harder things got. Think about how messed up the economy is now. Think about how much more in debt we are. Think about, maybe the family bonds that it broke. Think about anything that affected you negatively. There's probably a lot of you out there that are still being held back from how crazy of a time it was. So we can also talk about now, how can we get success in this very weird time while understanding all of this, while understanding the new world, and while understanding that things are different, times are different. And that is kind of the first bullet point of how we're going to have success in this time, is that we have to accept that times are different. And that is something we have to accept. And I'm going to say it again, it's something we have to accept. Times are different. The path to success is much different. It's much more emotionally driven. It's much more, you have to lock in a lot more. You have to be a little bit more different. You have to be built different to really have success during these times. We can't get frustrated when the stuff that other people did to get them success beforehand, that we're following these plans that are put in front of it and that are put in front of us, and they just don't work like they used to. And there's a lot of people, it goes back to just a common understanding in life, is that think about a really old guy trying to teach a 20-year-old about football, right? Now, the game has changed a ton, but that old guy is still going to try to give this young kid old ways of doing things, things that are outdated, things. That's basically, it just doesn't work. And yeah, maybe you can throw me some examples of some really famous old coaches, but those coaches were willing to adapt to change. And that's what we got to do, because times are different. And change not only happened in 2020, but change is always happening. Think about everything these companies, these famous people, all the changes that they're making, that are forcing us to make changes, that life is changing, new inventions are coming out like this, to adapt to this change. And if we're not able to adapt to that change, then yeah, we're gonna live a pretty miserable life. And that's just the honesty in that. And if we're able to adapt to change and think differently, and most importantly, not give in to the misery, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There absolutely is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I want to highlight again that sentence that I said, that we have to not give into the misery, because there's a lot of it. There's a lot of negativity out there. There's a lot of negative people. This world has changed so much that it has ripped people apart from the core and changed people. And not all of that change was good. Not all of that change was even remotely good. A lot of that change was very scarring. A lot of that change really made some people miserable, some people to the point of no return. And we can't give into that misery. The more we feed into that misery, the more that we're gonna sit here and suffer, because, like a famous Kevin Hart said, the sun is still gonna shine every day. The moon is still gonna be there. We just have to pick shit up from where it is and keep going. And with how different the world is, and how much we have to adapt to, and how much change is going on, and again, times are different, you can't just stay stagnant. You can't stay stagnant and be who you used to be. You got to be somebody different. You got to change with the times. And there's going to be a couple of those stories of people that maintained the same and didn't change any ideas or anything, and it worked out for them. But the majority of failure these days is because people weren't willing to change. People weren't willing to adapt. People weren't. And you can say that it's always been this way, but then we can also sit here and think, but the change is happening so much now. The change is definitely happening way too much now. And it's not like it is where we get this big, huge change, every 10 years, every 15, 20 years. Now it's happening every month or every few days, or whatever the case may be. So in regards to maybe a career path, the roadblocks in your head are there because of your head. There's so many ways to get creative now more than ever. Maybe you have to start with a bullshit job. Maybe you don't. Maybe you can be an entrepreneur through these times. Either way, do something. Do anything. No matter where you're at, just do something. That is the biggest thing these days, because the progress in today's day and age is dependent on you. No matter what your situation is, you gotta push through it. And I know there's some really hard situations out there. I understand that, and I know that. But in today's day, if you're not doing anything, you're gonna fall behind. There's not a lot of handouts anymore. It's turning into a dog-eat-dog world, and you gotta be the hungriest dog. And that's that. And I know there's, many careers out there, but, think about, maybe a local rapper, or maybe think about, you know, just sports in general. You have to keep going. You have to keep moving. I mean, one of the fascinating stories that's even, around in, New York, upstate New York, is there's a rapper by the name of Knuckles Brim, and a lot of people listening are going to understand and know who that is. But he keeps doing something, and I'm sure, and he's let us know on social media that there's been a lot of roadblocks, there's been a lot of bullshit thrown his way, but at the end of the day, he just kept moving. Little progress is still progress. He kept moving. He's gonna keep moving. It's impressive to see. It's impressive to see. And there's many other examples out there of people that just kept moving through it. I don't really like to use, too many rich or too many famous people that got richer during COVID, because then that would kind of take away from my point. But yeah, they face their hardships too. But rich problems are different from regular citizen problems, right? So another thing we have to look at is relationships. It takes a lot more these days. Holy shit, does it take a lot more these days? Sorry. But, everyone is thinking, everyone is overthinking, everyone's on the internet seeing a lot of stuff. This takes, it takes times, and it takes a lot of effort now. It takes a lot of understanding. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot. It does take a lot these days, and I'm sorry, it's something that is prevalently on my mind. And, through everything that everyone has going on in their life, you have to be able to be someone's peace. I think that's the most important thing, is that you have to be someone's peace. If you want a relationship to work, you have to be able to supply your significant other with peace, or it's just not gonna work out. And yeah, sometimes I don't follow that myself, and that that one meme comes into play where I don't want peace, I want problems always. I'm sure you guys seen the meme. So I do feel a little hypocritical as I'm saying this, but relationships now require a lot more than they ever have before. And the facts are facts. Let's think about all the stupid relationships that we've been in recently. And maybe they weren't stupid. Maybe it was just too good to be true. Maybe we got our heart broke because we thought one thing when it was another thing. There's a lot of things right there. But the relationships now, especially good ones, especially ones where the person you're with is very complex, and what I mean by complex is that there's a lot of different people out there. There's people that have so many thoughts, mental illnesses, random rushes, random motivations, just a real complex mind, something that's different, something that's going to take us a little bit more to understand. Even if we have those things already, someone else's those things are still different from your things. And we have to be able to understand that. And you should want to understand that, most importantly. A lot of our ancestors are basically, our moms and dads and grandparents, and, I'm pretty sure we hear some pretty miserable relationship stories of marriages that lasted a while, but they were miserable, and maybe some other stuff got uncovered. We don't want that as humans anymore. That's why relationships are so much quicker. That's why I believe, and don't fact check me on this, I believe divorces are down because people just aren't getting married anymore to begin with. This is one thing to understand, is that these days are a lot different. And again, pinpointing 2020 and what that did, again, the boom of Tinder and social dating apps, and People just being on social media 24/7 and getting this beautiful picture painted for them of something that they may want. A lot has went down. And, take the time to understand the entire picture of somebody else, because when you do, you'll see through a lot of that bullshit, and you'll understand way more than you would have in your past relationships, and understand that getting what you want requires your partner and their objectives and their thoughts. Let me say that again. It requires you to have a partner and their objectives and their thoughts. And we have to understand that. And a lot of times now, more than then, they're more complex. There's a lot more layers to it. There's a lot more things that we really have to understand. And I've learned a lot through my... Think about how you would compare the best basketball player at your high school who didn't end up being anything. And then you compare him to Michael Jordan, right? That is the definition of my relationships. Whatever you took from that just now, of that bullshit that I just said, that is what I want you to think when you think about my relationships. But, underwhelming in the bigger picture of things for, both my faults and the others' faults, but it's all a learning process, and that's all we're going to go through. And you got to be able to embrace the learning process, especially now that it's more different than it's ever been. It's more either quicker, a lot of stuff doesn't make sense, and this is going to be a whole nother podcast episode, but it's going to be a lot of understanding that people don't owe you an explanation for anything that they do. They don't. No matter how much time you've spent with them, no matter how much time you know them, people don't have to explain anything to you. And now more than ever, there's a lot more to understand. So you got to kind of play that little game where you got to try to understand as much as you can in a very small amount of time as possible. And that is, again, if we're going to find the success in relationships through this time since 2020, which is the time that I'm pinpointing here, we got to be able to understand the full picture, take everything in as much as possible, really deep dive, and really understand the other person that we're with, for better, for worse. And if that's not what your soul wants, then just fuck bitches and get money. And I'm talking about both genders, moving on, don't cancel me. But to kind of wrap this all up, to really conclude this whole topic, the messiness of 2020, how it really affected us, how it really changed the way we thought, kind of overrode our brains in a way. Always want better for yourself. That is going to be how I wrap this conclusion up, is always want better for yourself. We're not going to progress in a time like this if we don't want better for ourselves. If we sit there and we think the worst of ourselves, that's exactly what we're going to get. However, if we think the best of ourselves, we're going to take the steps to actually get the best for ourselves. And we don't know what the best for ourselves is until we truly get to someplace. But the best thing that you can do is always have that want to have better for yourself. Another important thing is that as long as you're alive, you're in the fight. I know there's some situations out there that are it seems very hard, like you're not going to get through it. But as long as you're alive, you're in the fight. Things are constantly changing, as I mentioned. And a lot of it's for the better and a lot of it's for the worse. But the most important thing is as long as you're alive, you're in this fight, baby. Or if you're in prison for whatever amount of time, you're not in the fight either. But fuck. The most important thing is that you're in the fight. And as long as you're in the fight, you have cards to play, and you have a game to play, and you have a game to play to win. So, if you're alive and you're not in prison, there's a very good chance you're in a better position than somebody, which puts you in a position to begin with. So take advantage of that and constantly be playing your cards. Find out what your fun is. You don't have to conform to 24/7 misery. You don't have to sit there and scroll on your phone all the time and look at other people's misery. You don't have to be miserable yourself. Just find out what your fun is, no matter what it is. I mean, it could be playing Fortnite, or it could be, I don't know, looking out your window. It could be scratching your ass. I don't care. Whatever your fun is, you don't have to be miserable 24/7. And if you scratch your ass, don't tell nobody. Nobody got to know about that. But yeah, just go find out what your fun is. Go have some fun. Go do what it is that you enjoy. The biggest thing is to stay away from being miserable, because once you're miserable, it is a trap. You will be miserable for a while. You'll be miserable over and over until you finally have that call to you that says, hey bitch, stop being miserable. Then you try to do what you gotta do. But the most important thing for consistency, for success, for truly pushing forward and what you want and what you need and what you feel that you want and need, is by finding your fun and staying away from the misery. And most importantly, it's up to you. I'm a big believer that the position that you are in life right now, a lot of it is because of you, a decision that you made, a position that you put yourself in. And there's a lot of unfortunate situations out there. I am understanding of that. But in today's times, it's going to be up to you. It's not going to be up to anybody else. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of companies, there's a lot of things that just they don't got it like they used to. Everyone's out there, from individual humans to businesses to groups of people to whatever. There's a lot of people scratching and clawing for everything right now, or that are making drastic decisions to keep their company afloat or to keep themselves afloat. Handouts aren't prevalent anymore. It's gonna be up to you. And if there is, one thing that 2020 should have taught everybody, is that you can have success out of legitimately anything. You can be successful doing anything. I mean, for Christ's sakes, people went out and bought toilet paper and sold it for $2 more. People went out and put porn on OnlyFans. People went out and started recording themselves dancing again. After Vine died, they just revived it right back on TikTok. There's so much that you can do. It's up to you. So always be looking to better yourself. Any progress is progress. As long as you're alive, you're in the fight. Find out what your fun is. Stay away from the misery. Stay away from the misery. Kind of like you stay away from a glizzy at a cookout. You stay away from misery. Not me. I pause, but glizzies are great. I'll always gravitate towards a glizzy at a cookout. And most importantly, it's up to you. But there you have it. That is the first episode of the Built Different podcast. It was a pleasure to appear here with glasses and light in my eyes this entire time. But I had fun talking about this. Hope all you guys got this far and this deep through. Again, it's going to be a fun journey that we have ahead, and thank you to everyone that listened. Have a good night, have a good week, have a good weekend, have a good anything. Let's get it.